Thank you very much, Francis. Now, prisoners in the Eastern Cape want the party that will win elections to come up with legislation that will create favourable conditions when they are released from jail. Now, this emerged during the IEC's registration process at correctional centres in the province. Prisoners say there aren't opportunities for them to transform when they leave prison.
Scores of inmates queuing to register. Mr. X was arrested for armed robbery and attempted murder. He says he has learned his lesson and would like to start afresh when he's released. But he says it's not easy as former prisoners are often isolated by communities and employers on the outside. They then return to their old ways.
I'm the person that will be elected to make ways for ex-offenders to be easier for them to be reintegrated into the communities so that we can go back and work into the communities that we're coming from. Yes, what we have done was wrong, and then we have learned from the wrong mistakes that we have done. But now we need to be given a second chance.
The IEC says scores of inmates registered at 47 registration points at 42 correctional centres in the province.
Make sure that those that maybe have family members that have brought their ID documents to the facilities will be able to register today, as well as those that were not in the facility because they had to go to court.
The IEC says it's all systems go for registration weekend with over 4,000 registration stations spread across the Eastern Cape. Busisiwe Jemsana-Mantashe, SABC News, East London.
Well, what we do know is that as of yesterday, there had been about 900 inmates that are already registered to vote. As of yesterday, we'll get a full update from our reporter, Busisiwe Jemsana-Mantashe, who joins us now outside the IEC Centre in East London, the IEC offices. Busisiwe, a very good evening to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, 900 inmates had registered by yesterday. Give us the full tally, and of course, it was not without glitches. Tell us more.
Very good afternoon, Criselda. We are indeed coming to you outside the IEC provincial offices in East London. Right inside behind me, IEC officials are collecting data from yesterday's registration and today's registration, which was the final leg of this registration process. We do not know as yet as to, from yesterday, where over 900 inmates registered to vote across the province, how many registered today. Of course, there were those hiccups where some prisoners did not have their ID books with them. The IEC, Criselda, before the registration started yesterday, leading up to yesterday and today, has been conducting visits and actually encouraging family members of inmates serving time to come and bring them their ID books, but some did not get those ID books. And today, the IEC was hoping that those that did not get the ID books yesterday would get them today, and those that when they needed to register, they had to go to court. Today was their day to register to vote. We are yet to hear from the IEC then if many of those were able to register. Remember that we have 42 prisoners here, correctional centres in the province, and there were 47 voting stations in those prisons. We're yet to get the numbers if many, the majority of them, did get a chance to register today.
Well, Busisiwe, I think one of the major issues is that we saw a press conference by the IEC's national officials today, basically saying that it's all systems go for registration come this weekend. Do you get that sense in the Eastern Cape as well? Because there are threats coming from some communities who say they do not want IEC officials in the different parts of the towns. Some of them angry, saying that there's been no service delivery in some of their areas.
Indeed, Criselda, as from the IEC, they're saying they're ready. They've trained enough personnel. They've trained enough officials to actually go to the over 4,700 voting stations in the province to actually make sure that registration is taking place. But the major issue here of concern, Criselda, is that the IEC has received letters from various wards warning them against going to their wards to actually register them. in Ndlambe municipality, for instance, the IEC even had problems of recruiting officials. You know that the IEC recruits officials from the wards that they come from so that they officiate over registration and voting. It had problems with that process because the community there is angry because of the demarcation processes, saying that they have been separated. They do not want to fall under a certain area and they want it to be corrected. But the IEC says those are MDA problems. Then as the IEC, they don't decide on demarcation processes.
Yes.
It is only that they are given a list from the demarcation board to actually go and officiate over registration and over voting. But they are saying that they're working together with the MDA and the police to try and work together with the community to find a solution to the problems that they're facing. We know that even today they were holding a meeting there to try and resolve their issues so that come the weekend they're able to register. In some areas, like in the Buffalo City Metro, in the northern areas, in the Nelson Mandela Bay, at Great Kai municipality, in Tabankulu municipalities, some wards there have also sent letters to the IEC saying that they do not want the IEC anywhere near their wards. They are protesting and they are angry over service delivery issues, saying that they are not going to vote, they are not going to register because for years they have stayed there and services have not been rendered, and therefore they do not see a point of voting. But the IEC Criselda is saying that is encouraging, actually calling on communities and community leaders to actually allow those who want to register, and actually saying that people must register even if they do not want to vote, or if they do, they will not be voting, but they must register so that when they change their minds, they're able to register. Because what would be the problem now, Criselda, is that when the president announces and proclaims a date for the elections, then they would not have a chance. It would be done. They will not have a chance to go and register if should they want to go and vote, and therefore they will not be allowed to vote in any of the voting stations in the province.
Our reporter Busisiwe Jemsana-Mantashe crossing to us live outside the IEC offices in East London, talking to us about some of the challenges during the registration process of several of the inmates in that province, saying there are now threats. Some communities saying there's been no service delivery in their areas, and they are warning the IEC not to come and put up their tents for the much-awaited registration process, which starts this weekend.